Started, and are we getting that recorded? There we go. Welcome, Lynn B. Thurgood here, CEO, founder of Oxford Wealth Advisors. It's our market update. We do this generally every last Friday of the month. And I'm coming to you live from our Austin, Texas office today. Boy, is it cold over here. I was told that I'm the lucky guy that was here where they had the lowest temperature drop in the history of recorded temperature recordings here in Austin. Tuesday, I guess they topped out at 88 degrees. And when I got here Wednesday, we're down to like 32 degrees and freezing rain. That's not what you come to Austin for. I mean, New Mexico, I get it, but good grief. So anyway, exciting times nonetheless. Let's go ahead and jump into our agenda. Y'all, if you don't know me, Lynn B., founder of the Oxford Wealth Advisors, we have a wonderful team that you saw their picture there. And so just that little, who is Lynn B., and happy to be here with you. Here's our agenda today. And before we get officially really started, we have a special announcement. Now we need to invite somebody in here to the office. So hang on just a minute. I'm gonna go grab her. We have a special announcement and I need your help with this. I don't know if we're gonna unmute or not, but we have a special announcement I wanna make sure we take care of. It's a special day for somebody here in our office. Oh shoot, what's this? Here she is. Everybody say hi to Lindsay Kemsley. Lindsay was recently promoted to be president of Oxford Wealth Advisors, and today is her birthday. So we're not going to sing because I'm not going to unmute everybody and you can hear the chorus, but she loves music. So everybody just send a chat or whatever and say happy birthday to Miss Lindsay Kemsley, and she is president of Oxford Wealth Advisors. And so anyway, okay, thanks, Missy. She didn't know that was coming. But let's jump right on into our agenda here. What we're going to talk about what happened so far in February and what's the game plan? And then we have a special guest today with us, Edward Lovato. He's an estate planning attorney, and he's going to take the last part of our session today over some estate planning basics, and I think we'll all benefit greatly from that information. Okay, and then at the end, we'll open up some questions as appropriate. So let's jump right on in. So what's going on? What in the world is going on? We've got let me just read a couple of comments, and then we're going to get into this agenda thing. You know, the declaration of war by Vladimir Putin was a pretext for Russia's wider foray into Ukraine. Dozens of Ukrainians have been killed so far, and his ultimate goal may be to take the entire country. So what does that mean for you? The stock market sold off really quick yesterday. If you were watching it, it was down over 800 points, and the S&P shredding over 100. The end of the day yesterday, everything was up. So it was a huge swing down to up that was quite concerning. And of course, oil, we're all worried about oil. It went over $100 a barrel. It dropped below that now. So we'll see. The big question is, okay, is this Russian incursion going to stop? Are they going to take all of Ukraine, part of it, Ukraine? Will they go further and expand in the conflict into neighboring Baltic republics? This would certainly be less likely and much more dangerous because a lot of those republics in Poland are NATO members, and we would be obligated under NATO to come to their aid. So again, the markets closed in the green yesterday, and we just looked at the markets this morning and early afternoon, and they're up significantly. So who knows? What we do know is inflation remains a top concern. Rising energy means inflation will likely continue, but President Biden has committed to limiting the fallout for energy prices. The reserve will likely be forced to act as a result, and could put further pressure on the markets. it's our hope, certainly all of us, that the invasion and the market reaction will be short-lived. But it's so important. This is a key point today. Making emotional decisions about your portfolio could be very detrimental. So be very careful about that. So we've got this potential invasion to actual, excess and froth in the market. Some of the market has been just silly, just absolutely stupid silly, out of control in speculation areas, especially crypto, etc. So those things are getting hit hard, and they were out of control to begin with. Inflation, we are seeing it for the first time now in decades. The Fed has talked about, and there's all kinds of opinion about three hikes, 5 hikes, 8 hikes. We'll see how that is as they try to correct the inflation and market issue. And of course, earnings and margin compression. We have a lot of companies lowering their earning guidelines, and probably appropriately so, resetting expectations. So, little history here. Russia annexed Crimea back in 2014. Separatists have continued to hold a couple of small territories there in Ukraine. They use the excuse that Ukraine hasn't been adhering to a ceasefire agreement to authorize them to send in peacekeeping troops. He announced that Russia would be attacking Ukraine to protect eastern Ukraine from the current regime and demilitarize Ukraine. And within minutes of his announcement, they started the missile attacks, and lots of details there. And that's what's going on. I mean, there's Ukraine. The very bottom of the picture is Crimea, which was annexed in 2014. And those two areas right over here that are right there, that's where the separatists are that are loyal to Putin and where a lot of the battle is occurring. All right. So, market update. The Federal Reserve is likely to take a more dovish stance, meaning probably fewer rate hikes than initially had anticipated. We'll see. Inflationary pressures are likely to lengthen, okay, and especially with commodities, oil and natural gas, etc. And there's some deflationary pressures as well. Despite the above trends that are probably going to continue, we still are having these supply chain issues, although they've been softening. Economic data was already starting to cool, so that, including consumer sentiment, and so those are all indicators of, okay, what's going to be impacting the market. Mortgage applications have plunged, and that will soften the housing market, which has been going crazy, and so on and so forth. So bank interest rates are low. Now, this is something I want to teach everybody, that the first reaction is, oh my gosh, bank rates are low. Well, that's first level thinking. Second level thinking would say, yeah, they are, but they're not going to stay low forever. So look a little bit longer, look a little bit more future, not just immediate reaction now. That's emotion. That's emotion. Use logic, use knowledge, use diversification, all those things that we teach. Energy, the thought is first level, everybody's going to be driving an electric vehicle. Well, that's a great idea. There's some neat energy behind that, but that's going to take time. That's not going to happen overnight. Staples, those stocks that have lower returns, well, yeah, currently they do, but over the long haul, they typically outperform in down markets. So that's something to look at. European equities, international equities have been getting beat up really bad lately, but they will have their day, so keep an eye on those. Emerging markets, the dollar is strong, but it will not forever remain that way. We have to be careful about those types of risks. And of course, the growth about the Fed hiking 6, 7, 8 times this year, it's probably going to be less. Growth will rebound. And then, of course, bonds. There are some opportunities as rates rise for proper bond allocation. So we look at those as well. One thought, when pessimism is high, forward returns have been very strong. In other words, down the road, looking 6 months to a year, this chart is a little bit too small probably for you to see, but if you look at this right here, these little dots, okay? These little dots recognize pessimism in the market. Right now, we're having some pessimism. Back in the COVID crisis, we had some pessimism and some other bullet points there. What we're finding is, if you look 6 months after that pessimistic event or a year after, you can see average returns in the double-digit range. So forward returns, average returns, don't panic on this short term. Yes, pay attention. Yes, diversify. Yes, have a discussion if you're not comfortable, not able to sleep, but let's not panic and react emotionally and lose the opportunity. We've shown this chart many times in workshops and other events. This is the S&P 500. It's dangerously top heavy. There are basically 5 or 6 stocks that are wagging. I call it the tail wagging the dog. The red line represents Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, Microsoft, and who was the other one? Anyway, six stocks that have been wagging. If you look at those 6 stocks over the last 7, 8 years, they have had phenomenal growth. If you take those 6 stocks out of the equation, the blue line is the, well, if you keep them in there, the green line is the S&P without those 6 stocks, the green line. The blue line is the S&P composite with those 6 stocks. And of course, the red line is just those 6 stocks all by themselves. So that's why I call it the tail that's wagging the dog. Huge impact on those. And many of those are getting hit very hard right now, short term, but they've had a tremendous long-term impact. So we do a lot of active management, strategic management with assets in our firm in the market exposed area. You're all very aware that we also use safe and secure principal protected assets, primarily in the fixed annuity arena. And so those assets are completely safe, protected. There is no volatility concern there about losing principal or losing any of your prior gains. Those are fine. And we've been through 2001, we've been through 2008 with those assets, and you're going to be experiencing that now as we see where things go. But good, strong management of fund managers don't discount the long-term benefit of that for a short-term panic. This little chart here, investment bank R.W. Baird looked at the top 5 of performing equity fund managers over a 10-year period. And what this chart shows is that even with the elite managers, about 40% of the time, they're going to have some short-time losses. And we don't need to panic there. If we give them a year, then only about 40%. If we give them 3 years, right here, then about 28% are having a little bit of difficulty. You go over a 5-year and a 7-year period, long-term investing. We use these types of equities primarily for our long-term rainy day money. So what we're saying is hold to the course, don't panic. These long-term performances will benefit you. And we're only talking 3, 5, 7 years, not 10 or 20 years. So just be aware of the fact that there are going to be times where these managers may be down a bit. And we talk about low yellow and medium yellow and high yellow, if you will. And many of you, as we set up these accounts, have said, yes, we can handle 5% downside or 15% downside or 20, 25. Well, now we're being tested. Can you really handle that? And if that's happening in your portfolio and you're down 6% or 8% or 3%, and you're really getting upset about whatever level you are exposed to overall with that asset, well, then we need to talk. We need to talk and talk about reallocating and finding out what that comfort number is. So again, short term, don't panic. Long term, pay attention to the opportunities. So the bottom line really on our discussion, what we like in the markets right now and in our economy, the earnings are still strong. There's still plenty of room for economic growth in our economy and opportunity there. There's a good market, labor market, if we can just get them to come back to work. Hopefully the allowances have ended and now they'll kind of get back into, okay, let's get back to work, and that'll be good. Cash is everywhere. There's cash everywhere. Interest rates are still very low. The Fed's going to stay very accommodative. They want to reduce inflation and encourage growth, so that's good. Balance sheets are good. Corporations are good. And banks are solid. So those are all good things. What are we worried about? Well, right there on the slide, we're worried about inflation because it's back. It's been about 30, 40 years since we've seen inflation at these levels. So we got to pay attention to that. Of course, Russia, China, etc. Fed's in a box. They got to make some smart decisions going forward. Indices are just too top heavy. Again, that prior chart where I have the tail wagging the dog, those big companies, primarily tech, it's too top heavy. They have got to stabilize and equalize a little bit. So we're worried about that. A lot of junk out there. A lot of junk, just zombies, stuff that needs to be done away with. And this is going to cause some of that. Already some of that is getting done away with, but there's still a lot more out there we got to keep an eye on. Complacency, investor complacency. We need a little more patience and just long-term horizon. Markets aren't cheap, but they're getting cheaper. So that's good. Things are getting, they were way overpriced. Things are starting to come down a little bit more appropriately. And a lot of the niche markets have improved a ton as well. So the game plan going forward, folks, as needed, rebalance that portfolio. If you have experienced some risk here lately that was too much, you said you were comfortable with about a 10% down and you're down about 8 and you're not feeling good, well, let's talk. Let's have a chat and see if we need to reposition 10 or 20% of the portfolio to reduce that a little bit. Don't overreact just based on the recent short term, because the long term is where these longer term monies are positioned for a reason. Sell anything you don't believe in. That's a great guidance there. Even now, sell it. Well, but it's down. Sell it. If you don't believe in it, get rid of it. Know what you own. Brandon last month on our market update talked a lot about knowing what you own. Pay attention to that. Don't just blindly go for, I heard this was good, I heard that was good. Understand what you're buying and what you own, and know why you own it. Okay. When we visit with each of you in our reviews and as we set you up as clientele in our bucket system of assets, green money, yellow money, red money, black money, we talk about how it's to perform and what each piece is for. Don't forget that. We have a game plan in place and it will work, and it has endured for the last 15, 20 years very successfully. But make sure that you have high quality assets. Avoid the zombies, as we call them, the fly-by-nights, and there are plenty of them out there and they look very good. And there's commercials on TV about crypto and other stuff. Be very, very careful about those types of things. High quality, focus on high quality. Lots of volatility ahead, no question. Lots of volatility. Okay, S&P averages 14% drop every year. Okay, and there's always another one coming around the corner, so pay attention. Barbell your approach. That's an interesting comment. We have assets, as you know, in our buckets that are completely safe and secure, and we have assets that have low or medium risk. All right, that's a barbell. You've got to look at the whole portfolio. Don't just focus on this. Remember this. Look what the combined thing is doing and how it incorporates into your overall plan. We've got a lot of good foundation and security there. That's a good thing. So remember that. And then, there may be some alternatives out there to look at, and volatility can be an opportunity. When prices are low, things are on sale, that's an opportunity for buying. Some of our managers have been buying in this current scenario. They bought some 2 days ago, they bought some yesterday, and today with the markets up as high as they are, I don't know, they may still be buying. There still may be some opportunity in some great sectors there. So I think that's the end of our discussion relative to that. I know that's quick and crazy, but I'm going to turn some time over now to our guest, Mr. Edward Lovato. He's going to talk to us about some estate planning issues. And then when he's done, we're going to open it up at the end for some questions, and we'll wrap it up at that point. So Mr. Lovato, welcome.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you for having me here, and welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Can I go ahead and share my slides? Let me see if I have that.
Hang on a minute. Let me get my speaker adjusted here.
I've got it here, I think, Lynn. There we go.
There, you're going to have to come and do that for me.
Are you all seeing my slides here? Let's say,
there we go. Go.
Common estate planning issues. Are you seeing that?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, again, welcome everybody. My name is Ed Lovato. I'm an attorney and the founder of Lovato Law, and we are an estate planning and elder law firm here in Rio Rancho. In fact, our office is just right down the road from Oxford Wealth Advisors office here in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. And first, before I get going, a little disclaimer, nothing I say here should be construed as specific legal advice for your particular situation. It's general advice for your information only. So please don't rely upon anything I say to make decisions with respect to any major estate planning issues here. If you want to have a more personal conversation and get specific advice about what to do, I'm happy to discuss that. In fact, I'll be offering everybody here a free consultation at the end of this. And also the things I'm discussing here today pertain to New Mexico only. I'm only licensed to practice law in the state of New Mexico. And so any kind of assertions, legal assertions or otherwise, are with respect to New Mexico law only. So that being said, let's jump right in. We all just heard Lynn talk about volatility. Volatility in the market, volatility with geopolitical issues, and just a lot of craziness going on present day with what's happening in Ukraine, with Russia, dealing with the fallout of a global pandemic, COVID-19. What all this tells us is that none of us really know what's going to happen in the future. Life is so unpredictable. Who would have guessed? Who would have thought, several years ago that we would have been dealing with a global pandemic the way we have been for the past couple of years now. So what does that mean? It means we should all have a plan, and we should all be prepared and think ahead and be ready for as much as possible. Yes, we can't predict everything in the future, but we can be prepared as to the extent possible. And so that's what I want to talk about a little bit with you today. Obviously, if you're working with Oxford Wealth Advisors, you've already given some thought to the future with saving, investing, retirement, insurance, and that sort of thing. But estate planning, it sort of goes hand in glove with investment advice and other financial planning, because really what estate planning entails is planning and thinking ahead about the disposition of assets upon your death, where things end up after you're gone, but also what happens in the event of your disability or your incapacity. If you're unable to make decisions for yourself, who then has the legal authority to step in and manage things and make decisions and handle property and money and so forth on your behalf? So that's what I want to spend a little bit of time talking about today. I don't know how in depth we'll get to cover a lot of this stuff, but again, I'll make sure that there's plenty of opportunity for you to get specific answers to your questions with our law firm at no cost here at the end of the meeting. Okay. So let's jump in here to the slideshow. Some of the things I want to talk about briefly with you today are powers of attorney, probate, and Medicaid. So powers of attorney, what is a power of attorney? I'm sure some of you have heard of this before, but at its essence, a power of attorney is a legal instrument that allows the principal, the person who is creating the power of attorney is called the principal, and they designate an agent who can decide things for them in the event they cannot decide for themselves. So there are different kinds of powers of attorney. A common one that we see here in New Mexico is a financial power of attorney. You'll sometimes hear this also referred to as a durable power of attorney for property. Same thing as a financial power of attorney. And this allows you, the principal, to designate an agent. The agent is also sometimes referred to as an attorney in fact. And your agent is empowered by you to handle legal, financial, business affairs for you. And you can make this power of attorney effective as soon as you sign it. That agent assumes their authority as soon as you put pen to paper, or you can make it effective only upon your incapacity. In other words, that's a springing power of attorney that springs into effect only once your doctor has actually declared you incapacitated. Now, my philosophy on springing versus immediate is that you should really only ever be appointing an agent who you absolutely trust. And so if you do not trust this person while you have capacity, then why would you ever trust them when you don't? And also, if they have immediate authority, it avoids that agent having to go and have your doctor actually declare you incapacitated, which can sometimes be more of a challenge than you'd think. So you can name, your primary agent and then successor agents. You can name co-agents to serve together. You get to decide who will act for you with respect to legal, financial, and business affairs if you're unable to do so yourself. And this avoids the prospect of a guardianship or a conservatorship if you become incapacitated. And a guardianship or conservatorship is a court process where if you're disabled or incapacitated, can no longer manage things yourself, then the court gets involved and the court decides who is going to be in charge, and you have no say in the outcome, and the court decides those things on your behalf. And so if you don't want that to be the case, if you don't want to have your family endure a lengthy and expensive court conservatorship process, then it's best to plan ahead. And a financial power of attorney is one great way of doing that, to name the person or persons who you wish to be in charge of your legal, financial, and business affairs. In order to make a power of attorney or any other sort of legal document, estate planning document, the person must have what's called testamentary capacity, which is the ability to understand, to make a decision, to communicate that decision. And also, if capacity is ever in question, then oftentimes what we will do is have the person's physician sign a report as to that person's capacity and whether they do in fact have the ability to know and understand what they are doing before signing legal documents. You can also make a power of attorney a general power of attorney, or you can limit the scope of the authority as well. But a power of attorney must be in writing and notarized. It can be revoked at any time. It can be superseded. So oftentimes, if you wanted to change who your agent is going to be, you can just create a new power of attorney, which revokes the old one and names your new agent. So that's just to know, it is always revocable. You can amend it anytime you wish. And a power of attorney is only good, it's only valid while the principal is alive. Once the principal dies, the person who made the power of attorney, once that person passes away, then the agent no longer has any authority pursuant to the power of attorney. Instead, at that point, upon death, we look to the will or the trust or whatever what we call the testamentary instrument may be. So again, powers of attorney are void upon the death of the principal. All right, another type of power of attorney that you may see comes in the form of what we call an advanced healthcare directive. And an advanced healthcare directive has three parts to it typically. First part being where you would name an agent to make healthcare decisions for you. So just like the financial power of attorney, the healthcare power of attorney is where you give legal authority to the person of your choosing to make healthcare decisions for you in the event you cannot make them for yourself. And then also there's what's called, used to be called a living will, but it's just end of life instructions. So for example, the way that 9 out of 10 of our clients, the way we prepare these living wills for them is they typically say that if you are certified in writing by 2 physicians, one of whom is your attending physician, to be suffering from a terminal illness or be in an irreversible coma, then you declare that you do not wish to receive what is called maintenance medical treatment. And maintenance medical treatment is really treatment that's designed only to sustain your life without improving your condition. So you're saying, no, I don't want artificial nutrition, hydration, etc. I do, however, wish to be free from pain and discomfort and otherwise left at peace. So that's how we write most of these. But of course, if you have other ideas about that, we can tailor those instructions to your satisfaction. And then you can also decide, whether you want to make an anatomical gift of your organs, You can decide whether you wish to be cremated. You can also leave these decisions up to your agent and let those people decide on your behalf. So that is what the Advanced Healthcare Directive does. And we also include with that what's called a HIPAA waiver. And the HIPAA waiver is important so that your agent, the person responsible for making healthcare decisions for you, will have the ability to access your private health information that is protected by the federal law called HIPAA. So if you've ever run into that problem with a healthcare provider not releasing information, this HIPAA waiver will definitely ease that process. Okay, so we talked about advanced healthcare directives, no need for a witness or a notary, but we do often like to bolster the document by having those. You can make changes at any time. A copy is as good as the original, and it's best to give copies to put them on file with your doctor or your agent, whomever you're going to be having as your healthcare agent. And also, oops, let me go back here. If you don't have a plan, the law sets one for you. They decide, who has authority. Your next of kin, generally the next nearest living relatives, would be the ones to have authority to make healthcare decisions. And by the way, everybody has an estate plan, whether you have a will or a trust or anything at all. Everybody has an estate plan. And if you've done no planning on your own, the state of New Mexico has already determined what your estate plan looks like. And basically, they say who has priority to serve as your executor and who your heirs at law will be. And so if you want to have a say in the outcome, then that's why it makes sense to talk to someone like me to help with your estate planning. And so again, estate planning entails a lot of things, but a big aspect of estate planning has to do with what happens to your property when you die. And so think of it this way. Everything that you own in the world, we can fit that into your gross estate. So think of the gross estate like a big circle. Everything you own fits inside the circle. And then of course, inside of the gross estate, imagine that there is a smaller circle, and we call that smaller circle the probate estate. So, some things that are inside of the probate estate, those are all the assets that are going to have to go through probate when you die because you own them in your name and did not otherwise have some type of beneficiary designation or non-probate transfer in place for those assets. Whereas that portion of the estate that is part of the gross estate, but outside of the probate estate, well, that is where we call that the non-probate estate, the non-probate transfer area of your estate. So what does the non-probate estate look like? Well, if you have a life insurance policy or an IRA or a 401k or something like that, that's a beneficiary designated asset. An annuity, that's a beneficiary designated asset. So those assets pass to whomever you have named as the beneficiary with the plan administrator or the insurance or the annuity company. Whereas those assets such as real estate that you may own in your own name or perhaps in you and your spouse's name, those assets are not going to pass outside of probate unless you've done some prior planning. And the reason is, if you own property in your name, like a home, and you pass away, well, then you're no longer alive to be able to sign a deed or to transfer the ownership or the legal title to that property out of your name to the names of your beneficiaries or your heirs. So the only institution really by law that can change the title to property in a deceased person's name is the probate court. They oversee this process where a personal representative, also known as an executor, steps in, is appointed by the court, and then gathers the decedent's assets, pays off any final expenses, taxes, debts, etc., and then distributes the assets to the rightful beneficiaries. And that's all done under the supervision of either the district court or the probate court. So what's so bad about probate? Well, most people when planning try to avoid probate because it takes time, it costs money, it's public. So why go through it if you don't have to? And there are ways of avoiding probate. For some people, that may mean that we want to create a living trust. For others, it may mean setting up some other kind of non-probate transfer, such as a transfer on death deed. But every situation is different. So when we sit down with clients and talk about their estate plan, we always try to get a handle on what assets they own, how they own them, and making a plan for each specific asset as to its final disposition upon death. So we take a comprehensive look at the estate when talking about estate planning. I kind of talked about what is probate already. I won't spend too much time here. Do you need a will? Well, again, if you don't have a will, the state's already said who your executor and who your beneficiaries will be. So what does a will do? It overrides the state law with respect to who your executor and who your beneficiaries will be. So you can decide who will have priority to serve as the executor, as the personal representative. And that is the person who is responsible, again, after you're gone, for gathering the estate, paying off any final debts or expenses, and then distributing everything to the rightful beneficiaries. So again, if you have no will, then intestate succession laws apply. And sometimes people mistakenly think that their will may control other assets, such as those assets that are held in the non-probate estate, and that is incorrect. So for example, if you have a will and you have a life insurance policy or an annuity, the will is going to have no control over that life insurance policy or that annuity. It's the annuity or the life insurance, again, remember, that is a beneficiary designated asset, which the will not have any control over whatsoever. And those are considered non-probate transfers. Other types of non-probate transfers, a common one is joint tenancy. And I see this happen frequently, and I understand why. I see it where clients will, for example, put a child on their bank account with them as a joint tenant. They think that the child having access, it'll make things easier for them to be able to help them pay their bills and manage things and so forth. The risk and the problem with this, however, let's say that child gets into a car accident and they're found to be at fault and they get sued, and maybe there's a judgment of $1 million entered against that child. Well, now that child's creditors are going to be pursuing, they're going to be coming after that child's assets. And that child's assets include the joint account that they are on with their parent. And so now the parent's assets have just become subject to satisfying their child's creditors. So we never recommend putting children or others really besides your spouse onto an account with you, or holding any property for that matter in joint tenancy. And joint tenancy is a form of holding title to property where when one joint tenant dies, the surviving joint tenant continues owning that property outright. And I'm flying through here. Again, I talked on joint tenancy with non-spouses. It's risky. Don't do it. There's a better way, like naming an agent under a power of attorney. So keep that in mind. Transfer on death deeds. This is a way of setting up basically a beneficiary designation on your house or other real estate. So to avoid probate with respect to transferring real estate at death, you could sign a transfer on death deed. And this, again, only applies in New Mexico. Other states' laws vary on this. So in New Mexico, though, if you own property, you can sign a transfer on death deed that says when we die, this property goes to whomever you name as the beneficiary. And then all that person has to do at your death is record your death certificate at the county clerk's office, and no probate. So that's a handy tool if the situation is appropriate. Okay, transfer on death deeds. And then I'll just touch briefly here on Medicaid, okay? Long-term care is a concern for many people as they age. Long-term care, of course, is care for people who need help with the activities of daily living, like dressing, cooking, bathing, using the restroom, those types of things. So if you cannot do those things for yourself and you need some type of long-term care, whether it's in-home care, assisted living, nursing home care, then the general rule is you pay your own way. Medicare, private health insurance generally does not pay for long-term care costs. So unless you've got some type of long-term care insurance or other financial solution available, then generally you just pay your own way. And then once the estate has been depleted sufficiently, then folks may qualify for Medicaid. However, there's a lot of misunderstanding about Medicaid and how to qualify and whether it is in fact necessary to spend down your entire estate. And so that's where we get involved. And again, we take a close look at the assets and the income. And if it makes sense, we can put a plan together that shields at least a portion of the estate from being lost to long-term care expenses. But again, Medicaid, long-term care, that's Medicaid is basically the government's program that it's available for people who have a need. It's a means-tested program. You're supposed to really have no other means available before you qualify for long-term care. But in some cases, again, when we look at the estate, we can say, all right, well, we can set some kind of trust up to shield at least a portion of the estate from being lost to long-term care. And then, of course, in coordination with your financial advisors, such as Oxford Wealth, we can talk about, your other avenues of protection, whether it's again, long-term care insurance or other solutions that are out there that are available. So I'm sure Lynn can talk to you more about that. Finally here, I want to make sure that everybody knows that for having attended this presentation today, I'm willing to offer everyone here a free consultation. If you want to come in and talk in a more personal way about your own estate planning, just use the code word Oxford so we know that you watch this thing, and we'll waive our consultation fee when you call in to make that appointment. I'll take some questions, and I'll put my information up here on the screen. If anybody wants to write that down, you can call or email. And I wanted to save some time here for Q&A, and I'll hand it back over to Lynn. And again, thank you, Lynn, for the opportunity.
Hey, well done, Edward. Thank you very much. This is a relatively new relationship, professional referral. We refer folks to him to help, and he can refer folks to us to help. There's no under the table or anything of that nature. It's a professional courtesy. That's the way we operate, and we'd like to have good, strong relationships with people that we know we can trust and that are competent. And I just gave him a referral to a dear friend up in Farmington that's now 90 years old and getting ready to be put into a veterans facility up in Durango, Colorado. And a friend of a friend was giving him advice, this dear client of mine, to give his house away and give away all of his assets so that he could get Medicaid to pay all his bills. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know that's not right. And so Mr. Lovato is giving them some good information about, don't get Medicaid or legal advice from your barber, okay? Probably not the best. Barbers are wonderful, but great place to learn a bunch of stuff, but watch out. All right. Again, a reminder that this is recorded. So if some of you came on a little bit late, we're okay. It'll be recorded on our YouTube site for Oxford Wealth Advisors, so you'll be able to replay that at any time. And I think we're a little over time, but that's okay. We had a lot to pack in here, especially with the latest developments. So let's go ahead and open it up for a few minutes here for any questions via the Zoom. Some of you are doing chat, which is fine, and that'll be responded to by our team members. But we'll go ahead and open it up for any verbal questions that you want to present in front of the entire group for just a few minutes. So go ahead and unmute yourself and have at it.
Lynn, before we jump into the Q&A,